Hello and welcome back to the Basic Bible Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Thompson. And this week we are continuing where we left off last week. So we have Evangelist Ben Everson from Bible Revival Ministries back, and we're continuing our conversation on congregational music that we started last week. So that conversation went a little longer than we normally do, so I tried to chop this up into 2 episodes. And so we're going to kick it off with we were talking about basically what are the different roles to play in congregational music, and when we're singing together in church. What is the job of the worship leader? What's the job of the congregant, the person in the pew who's singing? And so we're going to pick it up this week with that age-old question: what if I don't like the music? What if I don't like the song that we're singing? So again, this is Evangelist Ben Everson from Bible Revival Ministries. So what if this might happen, hypothetically? What if we're singing a song I don't like?
Well, you storm out.
Yes.
That's what you do. or cross your arms and have a terrible look on your face. No, I've been in that situation. I don't. You and I aren't the same on musical styles and stuff. That's fine. We can talk about that if you want. I'm not afraid of it. But I have been in churches where they are singing a song that I don't feel comfortable with, and what I do is I can give you an example. There was a church that we were at that had a drum set on the platform, and they were using that drum set, etc. And that's not my thing. I don't think drums are evil in and of themselves, but that's not. We don't have to go down that road if you don't want to. But it was a song I really didn't like. I thought the doctrine was a little weak, and then also the style wasn't what I really liked. But for that moment, as I am there as a guest, a mentor of mine said years ago, "Be easily blessed."
Yeah.
And so at that moment, I don't feel like I'm sinning against the Lord. I feel like I've been put in a position where the Lord would want me to exhibit grace. So I try to sing it. If I don't know the song, I try to learn it, and then I just try to put the parts of it out of my mind, and because that's not the time to make a big deal out of it.
Right.
That's not the time to like rise up and challenge. That's not it. The time to do that is, if you're a member of that church, is to set up, go through your steps, just work through it and say, go to the next person, not the next person. I need to be more specific. Yeah, go to your neighbor and say, "Hey, I hated that."
Let's spread gossip.
Yeah, exactly, right? No, go through your leadership chain, and just, is that a one-time thing? Is it something that's happening all the time? Is it a trend that is going to lead to you not maybe having to consider getting to another ministry? And before you do that, always weigh, grass is always greener on the other side of the septic tank. Right. It's all, but now I'm rambling a little bit, but I try to be easily blessed, and I will even try to sing along. Now, I'm a guest almost everywhere that I go.
Right.
I'm a guest. So I always think in my mind, well, I'm not even here next week. So
yeah,
I know that's a little bit different answer, because if I was a member of a church, then I would go to leadership and say, "Hey, I want to be active. I want to be an active participant," and think to yourself, first of all, why was I uncomfortable with it? Was it just different? Was I saved out of Roman Catholicism, and the songs seemed to have more emphasis on works, and it's just because I'm more sensitive, or because I've run into stuff like that, where it's someone emailed me or messaged me recently, and they said, "Hey, this particular song, if I was saved out of Roman Catholicism and it kind of feels like it's work salvation." And so I said, I've never knowingly put out a song that, embrace work salvation. What do you mean? And so going through that, I could see, oh, well, it's talking about being faithful and such. And okay, well, if you're going to try to do that in your own strength, or you're using that as a merit for salvation, then you got trouble. But the assumption is that you've already trusted Christ, and so he's going to help you to be faithful. So anyway, those are just some thoughts on that I have to encourage us along the way.
Yeah, it reminds me of a time there was an elderly member of our church who was sick in the hospital, and since has passed on to to be with Christ. But um, she requested a song to be sung. And as soon as I heard, it's like, oh, I know what song it's going to be. And it's this particular hymn. I love hymns. I love hymns. I really do. This one just kind of just drags on for me. Like, okay. And well, she was in the hospital. We actually had someone, she was watching the live stream. No, I'm sorry. This was not a live. This is a cell phone. This was before COVID. Okay. We didn't do live streams back then. At least didn't. And she requested this particular hymn and we sang it. And I just remember thinking, as much as I hate, I don't want to use the word hate, much as I dislike this hymn, this is blessing this person. And while I may not particularly get a blessing, this is my ministry to her. And since that time, I've tried to think of that whenever songs come up that I don't particularly care for, or, I mean, you know, I'm an amateur, mediocre theologian, and I like to pick things apart. And there are some times where I wouldn't phrase it this way. I don't like it that way. But there are times where I've learned that when I come up to a song I don't like, I look around and I remember, okay, I can be a blessing to somebody else over there who really enjoyed it. This blesses their heart. This really encourages their soul. And I need to remind myself, this isn't about me. You know, worship isn't about what my tastes are or what my preferences are. This is first and foremost a praise to God, but also, you know, Colossians tells us this ministers to other people. We are to minister to each other in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs. So this is a ministry to other people in the church, where sometimes I just need to show some humility, which I'm really not good at.
Well, it's tough for all of us, and I probably could guess the song within about 3 guesses if I'm understanding the age category correctly. But there's some that I've run across too. That, for example, I'll give you a couple examples. I just did a project. You're going to be the first. I haven't announced it anywhere.
Ooh, breaking news.
Breaking news. That's right. I've been asked over years just to do a hymns project. That's straight up piano and voice. And so yesterday I actually recorded that project, and it's going to be a while before it comes out because I have some other things in the pipeline, but later this year it'll come out. And so I was going through obviously and selecting hymns, and I had one out that I absolutely love, but there's one line in it. It's Rock of Ages, right? And well, it's a double line, right? Let the water and the blood from thy riven side which flowed be of sin the double cure.
Yeah.
Okay, so water and blood are the double cure. Well, that the background there is arguably, but the background there is that baptism helps save you. So water and the blood. No, the water doesn't save me. And water doesn't save any. Now, it's a clever use of, obviously, when his heart was pierced, and the spear went up into his side, and the water and the blood both flowed out separately. And we know that, you know, all the cool, I shouldn't say that, it's terrible. You know, the interesting medical side of all that. And so it's very clever and very creative writing that would list those two things. But I took the song off my list because I thought to myself, well, I'm going to have to change the lyrics just a little so that it wasn't double cure. And then I was like, well, if I'm changing hymn lyrics, it's easier, you know, it's just going to offend somebody. So I'm just going to leave that hymn out. Now, if I have to sing that as a congregational number, that's okay. I feel the same way about, well, I haven't touched base with you theologically in a while, so I don't, maybe you like this one, but dispensationally, I don't care for darkness shall turn to dawning, dawning to noonday bright, right? So that we gradually bring in the kingdom. So that doesn't line, but can I see that?
I hadn't gone post-millennial yet, so.
Okay, well, I agree.
Just like, when the roll is called up yonder, it kind of got some post-millennial thought in there.
There you go. Hey, I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah.
Well, hey, so real quick, but
go ahead.
You know what's always confused me is why dispensationalists sing songs like Father Abraham in Sunday school. But that's another story.
Well, I mean, still, I'm not a hyper dispensationalist where, you know, we don't read the Old Testament or anything like that. You know, but we can have a great time on that on a different podcast. I'd love to. Because I did spend some time studying hyperdispensationalism, actually, about an 8-year study. But pretty fascinating. But anyway, now I've lost the question. Oh yeah, we're talking about hymns and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but easily blessed, and
Right.
as long as it's not like heresy,
Yeah.
then clearly we don't do that. And maybe that's what Paul had in mind. Excuse me, when he's saying become all things to all men, because all of us would agree
Yeah.
he's not talking about sinning to reach the sinner,
Right.
but he's talking about adopt that set of presuppositions or the cultural subcultural mindset of that person, as long as it's not sinful, in order to reach that person. So
Yeah.
I think there's biblical precedent for that.
All right. So I got one last question to wrap this up with. And I think you're the perfect person to ask here because not only, again, are you a musician, but you are a preacher as well. And a good preacher that I'm going to give you credit for.
Oh, you're very kind.
I've heard the philosophy. In fact, I was at a church that taught this philosophy, and they don't know that I agree with this, but I'm sure you've heard this before, that the purpose of music or the purpose of this worship time is solely to prepare the heart for the message. So music kind of softens the ground, but then we get to the message, and that's the more important part. So is that an extreme? Or do you feel like, no, while music is important, it's not as important as the message itself, the sermon, I mean, by the message?
Well, let me say two things here. And the first is not related to your question, but your interview style is really nice because you set people up very well to answer questions well. So if we're going to have any kind of debate, I'm voting you as the moderator guy.
Yeah.
That guy that like, and what do you think of that? And what do back and forth? I think that's cool. But as soon as you said prepare the heart for the message, I was like, now I know where he's going with this, because that one I've said that before I really thought of what I was saying. And then I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, someone had a little bit of an issue with that, not with me saying it, but they're like, yeah, my pastor, and in that case, the pastor was kind of using it to de-emphasize the importance of the music. Another thing that's very related, and I would like to answer it too, because I think they're related, is when people say that the music portion is the worship. Like, now we're going to have worship and then we're going to have preaching. So, because I kind of see that as the other side of the ditch. So, when I'm using the term ditches, you can already kind of guess where I'm going to go with it. But I think, and I know it's a cliche and we use it a lot, but there's so much of Christianity and trying to be biblical where we do try to avoid two extremes.
Right.
And wherever the pendulum is swinging, I tend to be this guy that's resisting the pendulum. So if the pendulum's going this way, I try to remember Rush Limbaugh used to say, I am equal time, right? He'd buck against and the pendulum would swing this way. I feel like I buck this way. And if the pendulum's going back the other way, I forget which way I went. But, so I think the same way on this. Well, let's just cut to the chase then. It's all supposed to work together. I like the phraseology that I only know it from Ambassador Baptist College, who's going to be more conservative than me on a lot of music things. We're not too far different, but they're a couple steps more conservative because of my acapella stuff. But I love what they say, and I respect Evangelist Ron Comfort all these years. Preaching is king, but music is queen, and that's a great analogy. I can't.
I do like that
verse, because king and queen. Obviously, the king is the king. But in a good marriage relationship, I don't know about regal, but in a good marriage relationship, there is a headship there, but it's not one where, one's beating down the other. And so I like to think of that with music. So music can speak to us all its own. Yeah. If I didn't think that, I wouldn't do pure concerts sometimes.
Yeah.
And then I do think preaching is aided by a good song before it, I like... and do you have a problem with me being specific? I mean,
no, go for it.
Okay. There's certain, I'm just going to shoot straight. I couldn't listen to West Coast Baptist College music all the time.
Yeah.
But right before I'm ready to go preach, it's really good music, to get my mind and heart ready to preach.
Yeah.
And I haven't figured that out 100% yet. But just, in my kind of, I'm in a few places in fundamentalism, if we still call it that. But in my little slice of Christianity, that really helps me. And there's something about it. I don't know if it's because they're so preaching oriented and it comes out in their music, etc. But
Yeah.
then there'll be other sources, like I'll listen to Glad acapella stuff, and it doesn't really make me want to preach, but it does make me want to get my whole musical being involved in what's
Yeah.
going on to praise the Lord. So, anyway, hopefully that answered your question. I kind of
Oh,
went.
no, I'm going to steal that phrase that preaching is king, but music is queen. I think that really
Great.
does summarize what a good perspective should be. Excellent.
Yeah.
So, Ben, I want to thank you for joining us. And I think we went a little overtime, but I'm good with that. And so we do always end our programs with recommended resources. And Ben, I'm going to recommend first off that everyone go to beneverson.com, right? Is that the
Well, I just changed it.
Then I'm not going to recommend.
That'll work. That'll work. Yeah, you
Okay.
can go there. You can go there. But I reactivated BibleRevival.com. Our family,
good.
yes.
That is the best name for a ministry I've ever heard. Bible Revival.
Hey, thank you. I'm glad you think so. Yes.
All right. So Bible Revival. Say it again. Is it Bible Revival music or just Bible Revival?
Just BibleRevival.com. Part of it's because our kids are growing up and we're not emphasizing the family music quite as much anymore. Headed back towards emphasizing more the evangelist side. We won't get rid of any of our music, but it's just seasons of life. So now we're rolling back to kind of how we started.
Okay. And then on that, you can find, I'm going to recommend your book, Fusses, Fights, and Funerals. Now, I haven't read that book yet because someone hasn't sent it to me yet. But my media mogul.
There's a revision. There's a revision coming out.
So there's a revised version.
That's right. The revised standard version is coming out.
That just ruined your whole ministry right there.
Yeah, that's it. It's all done. Oh, no, I'm not an RSV proponent. Oh man, but the new one, we went overtime. But you were the first person to interview me about a book I wrote years ago, in I think 2011 on revival.
Yes.
And I am expanding that, and in fact, this is kind of neat. But Frank Garlock, who most people think of as just a music guy, he's quite a Bible student and quite a preacher. Actually, he's actually joining me and writing a couple chapters, and it should be out soon. And so you'll recognize a lot of it because about half of it is the original book, but I'm updating it, revising it, expanding it, including some new chapters, and that'll be out soon too. So after I do that, then the music book's next. I'm basically going through everything I've written, making sure they all line up, and then putting it on Amazon now, which I've not done in the past.
Awesome. All right, so we'll provide that link, BibleRevival.com. And then you're going to be coming up to this area at some point. And hopefully we'll get together, and I'm going to break out the banjo when you get here.
Yeehaw! All right, I'll bring my tuba.
Banjo, tuba. Okay, now that could be a whole album right there.
Yeah, I'd call it heavy metal.
Okay, so you're into heavy metal and revised standard versions. So man, this is the end of your ministry again.
Yeah, that's right.
You're just getting yourself.
I'll come run your mixer for you.
Well, you should, because I just figured I got a new mixer for this podcast, and I haven't figured it out yet, even though I had one of my former students trying to help me with that. But anyway, I think I'm getting a new mixer is the solution. All right, so Ben, thank you very much for joining us, and I hope you will come back on the podcast. Again, when you're in the area, we're going to do something in person, a live recording or something like that.
That'd be neat. I'd like that. Thank you so much.
Hey, before you go, wait a minute. We haven't asked the big question. What's your podcast situation?
Podcast. If anyone wants to know what the state of that is, it'll be on the website. I'll have it finished. I just am rebuilding it, so it'll take another week to build out the rest of it. But I keep trying to get going on the podcast, and I'm having a real hard time on a good schedule. And so at the moment it's languishing, but it's coming back. In fact, I already have an interview ready to go, and it is coming back, but I think it's going to go to monthly, just because I have so much content that I'm producing musically and then writing sermons and such. it does take third place. So if music is queen and preaching is king, then my podcasting is, I don't know,
The Prince?
the court jester or something.
Jester.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's much better. Yeah, because I love podcasts. I love podcasting. I love the whole genre, and that's why I keep jumping back in, because I love being a part of it. But also this year, and man, I'm really taking you overtime here, but this year is kind of a transition year after it. One at Christmas, 2 more of our 4 kids will be done traveling. So we've already lost 1, and then 2 more will be done. So this year is like jam packed. And then next year like goes hopefully down from 85 miles an hour down to a cool 70. So a lot of transition happening, and but the podcast will be back.
Okay, good. I listened to the podcast. I missed the
awesome.
podcast.
Yeah, I love it.
I want it back.
That's 2 of us. That's 2 of us.
And that's 2 more listeners than we have at the Basic Bible Podcast. But anyway, so one last thing. This whole interview, I've had my Pensacola water bottle out here.
Hey, thank you. And just so people know, how did you do that on your screen at like Basic?
No, I just noticed that it was kind of a cool thing. I think it's just because of the water bottle itself.
What
you can actually see the Basic Bible logo here.
That is.
So,
man, if
well, this is going to be our TikTok clip here.
How did you do that?
This is
that is wild.
Yeah, wow. I'm having too much fun with this. But yeah.
Good times.
The excitement. All right. So this might even be a 2-part episode. I don't know. But thank you, Ben, and thank all of you for listening. And don't forget, check us out, www.basicbiblepodcast.org, and then you can check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Basic Bible Cast, and join our Facebook group. And again, we're still on TikTok somewhere, so check that out. Be back next week. Have a good rest of your week.